All right, so get ready. We are going deep into the world of academic English. You guys sent over some really interesting stuff on essays and research papers.
Right.
And I am ready to dig into it. I have a feeling this is going to be way more engaging than like those old textbooks.
You might be surprised.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, strong writing is like a huge asset. No matter what you're doing, if you can communicate your ideas well, it's like a superpower.
Absolutely. I think you'll find this stuff pretty interesting. A lot of people kind of hit a wall with academic writing.
Yeah.
But it's really a skill. You can build it like any other.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about, what are we working with here? What did our listeners send over?
So it looks like we have excerpts from a guide.
Okay.
It's a guide to writing essays and research papers.
Uh-huh.
And it covers a lot, planning, structure, sources, making a good argument. But what's really cool is that it focuses on the principles behind good writing. So not just the mechanics, but like the choices you make as a writer.
That's so cool. I love that about these deep dives. Like, we really get into the why behind all the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So what's one of the things that really pops out at you from this material?
Well, one of the things that really stood out for me was the difference between academic English and just everyday language.
Oh, for sure.
Right. It's kind of like you're shifting gears from just casual conversation to something more formal.
Yeah.
So you're aiming for more precision, being clear and using evidence for what you're saying.
That evidence part always kind of tripped me up in school.
Uh-huh.
It's like, cite your sources, but I never really got why it was so important.
Right.
Is it just about avoiding plagiarism?
Well, yeah, that's a big part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Giving credit where credit is due. It's like academic honesty.
Right.
But it's more than that. It's like, imagine you're sharing an idea at work or something.
Totally.
And you're just throwing out opinions without any backing, any support.
You got to have the data.
Exactly.
The research, the proof.
So when you cite sources, you're basically building a solid foundation for your arguments. It shows that you've done your research, that you're in conversation with, what's already been said about this topic.
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're a lawyer making a case and your sources are the exhibits.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it.
Now, I noticed this thing in the material about planning and outlining before you write. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I'm more of a just start writing and see what happens kind of person.
Yeah.
Is that totally wrong?
Not necessarily, but the source you shared is saying that planning, even just a little bit, can really help. It doesn't have to be super rigid. Just a basic roadmap can save you so much time and hassle in the long run. It's like you're building a house. You wouldn't just start without a blueprint.
Okay, that's a good point. So structure matters.
Right. And the source even talks about how, if your argument is poorly structured, even if your ideas are brilliant, the whole thing falls apart.
Wow. Yeah, it's like having amazing ingredients, but not knowing how to make a recipe. Right?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm convinced about the planning part. So what's next?
Well, according to the source you sent, the next step is all about crafting that perfect thesis statement.
All right, let's talk about the thesis statement, because that's always been a bit of a mystery to me. I know it's the main argument of your essay.
Right.
But how do you make a thesis statement that's actually good?
Well, the source gives some really great examples.
Okay.
So a weak thesis statement might just state a fact like social media is popular.
Okay. Yeah.
But a strong one takes a stand.
Oh, cool.
It's specific and gives you a preview of what's coming.
Okay, I like where this is going. Give me an example.
So let's stick with social media. A strong thesis statement might be something like, while social media can help people connect, its negative effects on mental health and privacy are a much bigger problem, especially for young people.
Okay.
See how that's more specific?
Yes.
It's debatable, and it tells you what the essay is going to be about.
Yeah, it's not just stating a fact. It's setting up a debate.
Exactly. You want your reader to keep reading and see how you're going to prove your point.
Okay. I'm starting to feel like I could actually write a decent thesis statement now. But what about the rest of the essay?
Yeah.
How do you take that thesis statement and turn it into a full-blown masterpiece?
You got to build it brick by brick.
Yeah.
And the source talks about this really helpful tool, the TEAL structure.
TEAL. Tell me more.
It stands for topic, explanation, example, and link. It's a framework for making sure each paragraph is well developed and on point. So you introduce a topic, explain it, give examples, and then link it back to your thesis.
Ah, okay. So it all goes back to that thesis statement. But doesn't that sound kind of formulaic?
It can feel that way. But think of Teal like a tool, not like a rule book, you know?
Right.
You still need creativity and style.
So it's like scaffolding. It helps you build a strong structure, but then you get to decorate it.
Right.
I like that. Okay, so we've got the plan, the thesis, the Teal structure.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready to write yet?
Almost. There are a few more essential things we need to cover.
Ooh, cliffhanger. Looks like we'll have to continue this deep dive in part 2.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back.
Yeah.
Last time we were talking about like planning, thesis statements, and that cool Teal structure.
Right.
What else is essential before we actually start like writing?
Well, we touched on it briefly, but I think it's worth going a little deeper on coherence and cohesion. The source you shared really emphasizes this. It's not just grammar. It's about making your writing easy and enjoyable for the reader.
Okay, so it's like the difference between driving on a bumpy dirt road and like a smooth highway.
Exactly. The source actually uses a similar analogy. You don't want your reader to have to struggle to follow you.
Right.
Coherence is like the big picture, like how your ideas flow from paragraph to paragraph. Cohesion is more about the smaller connections, like how sentences and paragraphs flow together smoothly.
So like coherence is the map and cohesion is the glue that holds everything together.
I like that. And one of the key ingredients in that glue is transition words and phrases.
Oh, right.
Words like however, therefore, in addition.
Yeah.
They signal to the reader where your argument is going, make those smooth turns in the road.
It's like those next exit signs on the highway.
Yeah,
Without them, you'd be totally lost.
right. Now, you know, the source you sent also talks about common mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
We've all been there.
Oh, for sure.
Even experienced writers. So what are some of those mistakes we should look out for?
Okay, spill it. What should we be watching out for?
Well, one of the big ones is using language that's too informal. Academic writing needs a certain level of formality. So avoid slang, casual expressions.
Okay, got it. So like no texting abbreviations in my research paper.
Exactly. Another common trap is writing those super long sentences that just go on and on. I've definitely been guilty of that.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to pack in all these brilliant ideas, but it just ends up sounding like a jumbled mess.
Yeah, that's it. The source emphasizes that clarity is super important. Short, punchy sentences can be way more effective.
Okay, so it's not about showing off my vocabulary. It's about getting my point across clearly.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, about citing sources, I know it can be a bit of a pain. All those different styles, MLA, APA.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right. But they're there for a reason. They create consistency.
Right.
And make it easy for readers to find your sources.
So it's not just about giving credit. It's also about making your work easy to follow.
Exactly. And the source even gives some tips on integrating those citations smoothly.
Oh, nice.
So it's like weaving them into your writing, not just slapping them on as an afterthought.
Okay, I'm really starting to see that academic writing is a lot more nuanced than I thought.
Yeah.
It's not just about following the rules. It's about making choices that strengthen your writing.
That's a great way to put it. It's a balancing act. You want to be accurate, but also engaging.
All right, so we've covered the building blocks like planning, the thesis, the Teal structure, coherence, and cohesion. What's next?
We've got to talk about those bookends.
Oh, you mean the intro and conclusion?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. That's where I usually get stuck.
Well, the source really stresses how important that strong opening is, that hook that grabs your reader's attention.
Okay, what makes a good hook?
Well, it really depends on your topic and style.
Right.
But you want to make them want to keep reading.
So should I start with a joke?
Could be.
A quote?
It could be.
A question that makes them think?
It could be. You could use a provocative question, a surprising statistic, or a story that connects to your theme.
Okay, so you got to grab them from the very first sentence. But what comes after the hook? Go ahead, just jump right into the thesis statement?
Not so fast. You want to lead the reader into your thesis statement smoothly, give them some context.
Okay, so like some backstory and why this topic matters.
Exactly.
Okay, I see. So then the conclusion, is that just summarizing everything I already said?
It's more than a summary. It's your last chance to really make an impression.
Oh, okay. Like the mic drop moment.
Exactly. The source talks about offering insightful reflections or takeaways. Connect your argument to the bigger picture.
Okay, that's a challenge I can get behind. But how do I do that without just repeating everything I already said?
Well, one way is to connect your argument to a broader context. For example, if you're writing about social media and body image, you could conclude by talking about the need for media literacy in schools. Or you could encourage your readers to think about their own social media habits.
Okay, so I zoom out to show the big picture. Why this topic matters in the real world. Wow, this is all making a lot more sense now. I'm actually starting to feel confident about tackling introductions and conclusions.
Yeah.
But what about the actual writing process?
Right.
I know you highlighted some stuff about revision and editing. That's always the hardest part for me.
I get it. A lot of people feel that way, but this stage is so important.
Okay.
This is where you polish everything.
Right.
So it goes from good to amazing.
Okay.
But we'll have to dive into those revision and editing strategies in part 3 of our deep dive.
All right. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into academic English. So we've talked about everything from brainstorming to building arguments to making those smooth transitions. But now we've got to talk about the part a lot of people dread, and that's revision and editing.
Yeah. So taking that rough draft and really polishing it, making it shine.
Right. I'll be honest, that's the part I tend to rush through. Any tips for making it a little less painful, a little more fun maybe?
Wow. Absolutely. One thing the material talked about is stepping away from your writing for a bit. Give some space, let those ideas settle. Then, when you come back to it, you'll see it with fresh eyes.
Yeah, it's like when you revisit a place you haven't seen in ages, you notice all these new things.
Exactly. And don't forget, revising isn't just about fixing typos or grammar. It's about making sure your ideas are clear and well supported and that your voice really comes through.
So it's not just about the technical stuff, it's about the overall impact.
Exactly. This is where you ask yourself those tough questions. Is my thesis still strong? Does my evidence really back up my claims? Does my conclusion leave the reader thinking? The source even suggests reading your work out loud. It can help you catch awkward phrases or sentences.
Oh, I do that all the time. It's like you hear your writing in a whole new way.
Right. And you can even ask a friend, a classmate, or a writing tutor for feedback. Another perspective can be so helpful. Now, remember how we talked about cohesion? That's really important for the overall flow of your writing.
Yeah, making those smooth connections between sentences and paragraphs.
Exactly. Remember those next exit signs we talked about? Think of your transition words and phrases like that. They're like signposts guiding the reader through your argument.
Right. Transitions are key. But I feel like there's a fine line between using enough and overusing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like making the writing sound too formulaic.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You don't want to force transitions where they don't belong. Sometimes the best way to connect ideas is just with a clear, concise sentence.
So it's all about balance, making the writing flow smoothly, but also sound natural.
Exactly. And that's where a deep understanding of your own argument comes in. When you're clear on what you're trying to say, the transitions will often fall into place naturally.
This has been so helpful. I really feel like I have a much better grasp on academic writing now.
That's great to hear. Just remember, academic writing, like any skill, takes practice and patience. Don't beat yourself up if your first drafts aren't perfect. Revision and editing, that's where the real magic happens.
So to everyone listening, embrace the process, ask for feedback, try different things, and most importantly, just keep writing.
Yeah, and remember, these skills apply to more than just academic writing. Pay attention to how writers use structure and evidence in different types of writing, like news articles, blog posts, even emails. You'll see how much these skills can improve your communication in all areas of your life.
Well, this deep dive has given you a great foundation. But remember, learning is a lifelong journey. Keep exploring, keep honing your skills, and never stop seeking new knowledge. Now go out there and write some amazing essays and research papers.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of academic English. Happy writing.